A US judge has ruled that the rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs will stand trial on federal trafficking and racketeering charges in May. He'll be held in prison until then. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that he used his business empire to transport women and male workers across state lines to take part in recorded performances. If convicted, he could face a life sentence.
Sean Diddy Combs, the once untouchable mogul of music and luxury, is now a ghost in his own skin, trapped behind cold steel and whispers of vengeance. Gone is the man with a diamond-encrusted grin and global brand empire. What remains is a shell in shackles, reportedly slipping further into an unstoppable decline that even his fiercest allies can't spin into a comeback. According to insiders who have watched this downward spiral unfold, Diddy's condition has deteriorated so severely that multiple emergency trips to intensive care have become a routine, not a rarity. At 55, he's no longer orchestrating the moves from a penthouse office. He's fighting to stay upright in the fluorescent purgatory of Brooklyn's MDC lockup.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies.
His appearance, once bold and commanding, has taken a frightening turn. Courtroom observers said it plainly, astonishingly thinner. We're talking about a man who once strutted runways and red carpets, now barely filling out a prison-issue jumper. Reports claim he's refusing all hot meals, avoiding the cafeteria like it's a battlefield. Why? Because, according to multiple sources, including one prison consultant who's seen high-profile inmates before, Diddy believes someone might be lacing his food. The paranoia runs deep. And it's not entirely unfounded. The kind of secrets Diddy's accused of harboring, they don't just pass away quietly. Some fear he won't live long enough to make it to sentencing on October 3rd. He's reportedly surviving off commissary items, sealed snacks, pre-packaged processed goods, and whatever unseasoned mystery meat the vending machine gods allow. This isn't a diet of choice, this is survival mode. Diddy, the same man who once sold bottles of branded spirits for hundreds of dollars, now treats a packet of ramen like gold. Because for someone who's suspected of burning bridges with powerful figures both in the music industry and the underworld it occasionally brushes against, even a spoonful of applesauce could carry a hidden agenda. What makes this story even darker is the whispered theory that Diddy's decline might be more than just stress, more than just the weight of the courtroom spotlight. What if this is a form of retribution playing out behind the scenes? A slow, deliberate breakdown orchestrated by people with long memories and deeper grudges? Sources close to the case are already tossing around phrases like inside job and long game revenge. Former road manager from the bad boy era told a journalist off record that the mogul crossed the wrong people a long time ago. Combine that with the court's recent refusal to grant him bail, citing not only flight risk, but the possibility of witness tampering, and you start to get the picture. Someone's keeping him in a pressure cooker, and the heat just keeps rising.
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there.
And let's not forget, Diddy has not just been accused of wrongdoing, he's been convicted. 2 counts of transportation to engage in illicit encounters. The serious racketeering and trafficking charges, acquitted, yes, but that doesn't mean forgotten. Prosecutors, despite a public stumble, still painted him as a mastermind of a years-long operation, fueled by control, indulgence, and the kind of parties that leave psychological burn marks. 34 witnesses took the stand, describing substance-laced sessions, coercion, blackmail, and degrading scenarios that one attorney called modern-day freak shows. Even though the jury didn't buy into the RICO narrative, what they did convict him on still paints a damning portrait. And it's that portrait that follows him now, through every hallway of that facility. Each gaze from guards and inmates alike.
This is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
It's not just the court that's turned on him. There's growing chatter that some of his former associates, men and women who once moved under his command, are flipping behind closed doors. The kind of people who know too much and fear that Diddy, if pushed to the edge, might finally spill everything to the feds in a desperate play for leniency. But here's where it gets chilling. Insiders claim Diddy made sure some of them won't talk. Multiple speculative accounts have surfaced alleging that several ex-employees, particularly those closest to the alleged logistics of his private life, have either gone radio silent or worse, have disappeared from the inner circle under strange circumstances. No statements, no testimony, no appearances at all. One former assistant reportedly told a friend, "If you say anything, you might not wake up the same." That's why some believe Diddy's worst fear isn't prison, it's betrayal. And the meals he won't touch? They're just the physical symbol of that paranoia. Inmates at MDC say he paces like a man who expects the floor to collapse at any moment. He's reportedly stopped engaging in most programs, outside of the ones recommended by his lawyers. Yes, he joined the STOP initiative, allegedly to show remorse and rack up goodwill before sentencing, a calculated move according to multiple legal experts. One former federal prosecutor even called it gamesmanship 101. Therapy sessions, domestic violence rehabilitation, addiction programs, all standard fare for someone about to beg a judge for leniency. But while the lawyers chalk it up to strategy, others claim it's more than that. Some close to the facility say he looked spooked during his intake interviews, asking more about meal sourcing and staff loyalty than about sentencing expectations.
Yeah, but so there's still, I mean, it's crazy too because there's still more happening in court. Like, I mean, everything is still active even though we're not hearing about it as much anymore. And the people may be fatigued like we talked about prior to.
So what exactly is happening inside those walls? Is Diddy truly breaking down? Or is he buying time, waiting for someone to cut a deal or for the courts to throw out more charges? If you ask those still loyal to him, they insist he's fit and mentally focused. One even claimed he's in good spirits. But even that sounds like press team theater, doesn't it? The truth is, sources from the inside say he's barely recognizable. One court reporter described him as grayer, thinner, and visibly detached. Another noted that he seemed disoriented at his last hearing, slow to respond and clearly uncomfortable even under light questioning. A man used to commanding armies of stylists and staff now reduced to holding himself up with a plastic chair and avoiding eye contact with a judge. It's not the fall that shocks people, it's how fast it all crumbled.
Still pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery. And not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share. But more importantly,
and while he awaits Judgment Day on October 3rd, another clock is ticking, one far less predictable than a courtroom calendar. That's the countdown many believe he won't outlive. Not because of age, not because of illness, but because of enemies. Whether they're inside the prison walls or lurking just beyond, the theory gaining steam is that someone, somewhere, wants to make sure Diddy never talks, that whatever he's been accused of, whatever deals he might consider, never sees daylight. And if that means silencing him the old-fashioned way, a slow grind, a little sickness at a time, an undetectable powder in a peanut butter packet, well, stranger things have happened in cases like this. And unlike the suits and ties in the courtroom, the people operating in this world don't do subpoenas. They do silence.
We're monitoring another push to free Sean Diddy Combs tonight, with his legal team citing new evidence in an updated bail proposal. The music mogul agreeing to around-the-clock security and cutting out contact with basically anyone but his legal team to get out of jail ahead of his trial scheduled for May of next year for charges he allegedly coerced and abused women for years.
That's why some are calling this not just a case of justice, but of survival. And in the middle of it all, Diddy seems to be losing grip on both. His empire's already gone, his brand is radioactive, his former allies are ducking interview requests and deleting old photos. Even the celebrities once mentioned alongside him in the same breath, Cassie, Ye, even Usher, are avoiding public comment like it's toxic waste. With a sentencing window of 15 months to 5 years, he might technically walk free someday, but from the looks of it, he may not walk anywhere if this decline continues. A federal facility isn't known for its mercy, and even less for its protection. Especially not when your name's been shouted in the same breath as rackets, secret tapes, and allegations of long-forgotten victims finally finding their voices. The cracks in Diddy's empire are now impossible to ignore. Behind the glossy memories of platinum records and all-white yacht parties, a darker chorus is building. One composed of former allies, disgruntled employees, and insiders who aren't just whispering anymore, they're circling. These are the same people who once shielded him, ran interference, and helped orchestrate the very scenes that prosecutors later picked apart in court. Now, according to multiple sources close to the federal investigation, at least 3 of them are cooperating in secret, and not out of civic duty, out of fear. Because the legend goes, Diddy kept receipts. And those receipts don't just end with him.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet's The Interview, the series where we get in depth with amazing people, and I'm so honored to have this special guest with us here. Precious Muir, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, my love?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm making sure I center you a little bit more. There we go. So honored to have you here. You have some stories to tell. You've survived the white parties.
One former assistant who testified under pseudonym Mia claimed she settled for nearly $500,000 after quitting. But what's most haunting isn't the payout. It's what she said happened before she left. According to courtroom statements, Diddy allegedly kept troves of footage. We're not talking behind-the-scenes clips or marketing reels. We're talking tapes from his infamous freak-offs, highly orchestrated, multi-day sessions involving guests who likely never knew a camera was rolling. That footage, described by multiple witnesses, was stored on encrypted drives, backed up in at least 2 international locations, and used, allegedly, as insurance. The question isn't whether the tapes exist, it's who's holding them now.
I believe that it opens yourself up to some negligence claims. Again, I don't know if Jay-Z is going to go that far, but certainly I think it does open himself up to some negligence claims. Maybe that was part of the reason why he dismissed with prejudice. I don't know.
Because the stakes, they go way beyond Diddy. That material could contain compromising evidence on celebrities, executives, and even politicians. Names already tossed around the courtroom include artists like Usher, Ye, and even bizarre curveballs like Mike Myers. Sure, some were just mentioned in jury screening, but that's exactly the kind of smoke that suggests hidden fire. Several defense attorneys warned early on that if those tapes got subpoenaed, it would be a cultural detonation. But Diddy was never forced to turn over everything, not yet. And if those archives fall into the wrong hands, or worse, are sold as leverage, entire careers could vanish overnight.
Oh, obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers in the defense team, especially during some of the aggressive cross-examination. That tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented.
This is why the betrayal narrative matters. These aren't just disgruntled assistants or former girlfriends telling their stories. These are potential witnesses with knowledge of what's on those drives. People who transported the guests, handled the files, and, if the rumors are true, signed ironclad NDAs under threat of retaliation. Now, with Diddy teetering in and out of medical wards, those same people are reportedly striking deals. At least 2 federal filings remain sealed, and according to a retired SDNY investigator, that usually means cooperating testimony. Could someone inside the facility be working with them? That's what prison insiders are whispering. That Diddy's collapse might not be age, but the result of long-range payback. And let's not pretend this ecosystem of silence was ever sustainable. For years, insiders protected the brand, whether it was paid settlements, private jets flying unnamed guests across state lines, or quiet favors exchanged under the radar. There was always a structure. But now, that structure is collapsing. Take Capricorn Clark, Diddy's ex-assistant, who told the court she feared for her life after disclosing previous ties to Suge Knight. Or Deontay Nash, a former stylist who described the mogul's violent outbursts over simple acts like clubbing with Rita Ora. These aren't anecdotes, they're puzzle pieces, each one pulling us deeper into a world where loyalty was currency and disobedience meant exile or worse.
Dishonest, violent, horrible. A promiscuous swinger who lied to and cheated on multiple partners. Incredibly, that's how Sean Diddy Combs' own lawyers described the billionaire music mogul, currently facing serious trafficking charges in a New York court.
The danger now isn't just that Diddy might not survive his sentence. It's that the people who once operated in the shadows are emerging from them fast. And each one seems to be bringing something to the table. Documents, voice memos, time-stamped videos. One source close to the case told reporters that a flash drive could flip this entire thing on its head. We don't know what's on it, but it's allegedly tied to one of the core accusations, an incident involving multiple unnamed celebrities, substances, and coercion. If that drive surfaces, it won't just be Diddy in the hot seat. It'll be the kind of domino effect that turns public image into shrapnel. Meanwhile, Diddy's health continues to nosedive. Every week brings a new report. His knees failing, his appetite gone, his vision weakening. And through it all, that paranoia remains a constant. The theory that he's being slowly taken out, bit by bit, isn't just whispered in conspiracy circles. It's discussed openly among prison staff. A correctional officer recently told an off-record source that Diddy refuses to take pills unless they're sealed in front of him. Even then, he inspects every caplet like it's a potential trigger. Is it over the top? Maybe, or maybe not, when you're a man with this many enemies and this many secrets waiting to be unlocked. They say paranoia is just awareness in an unsafe world, but in Diddy's case, it's mutated into something more corrosive. According to 2 sources familiar with his incarceration, he's developed a habit of pacing his cell for hours, mumbling to himself, repeatedly checking the door, the vents, even the seams in the floor tiles. He reportedly refuses to sleep more than a couple of hours at a time, convinced that they will strike when his guard is down. Fellow inmates have described hearing him argue with voices no one else can hear, sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, but always fractured. This isn't just anxiety, this is the unraveling of a man who once dictated the pulse of a generation, now battling shadows of his own making.
So we just got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. It's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment. And his response is, I got a busy life. I can't be dealing with your silent treatment. And we got to keep it.
And yet, it's impossible to ignore the cruel irony. The very empire he built through control is now the source of his total loss of it. The same surveillance, the calculated manipulation, the hoarded leverage. Those tools once made him untouchable, but now isolated in a 6x9 cell with no assistance, no entourage, no firewall of stylists and lawyers, those same instincts have turned inward. Insiders say he's become obsessed with the idea that someone is impersonating his legal team, planting false documents, or monitoring his privileged calls. One guard even claimed he covered his toilet with his sheet for 3 days, convinced there was a camera inside. Whether these are legitimate fears or the byproduct of unrelenting guilt, it paints a bleak portrait, a man once celebrated for vision, now undone by his own imagined conspiracies. What we're witnessing may not just be a physical deterioration, but a psychological collapse in slow motion. There's no therapist on earth who could untangle this web. Decades of secrets, guilt, power, and punishment all crashing down in a confined space with no exit. The system may be punishing Diddy for what he's done, but it's also revealing who he's become. A man at war with himself. And that might be the most haunting image of all. Not the courtroom footage, not the freak-off tapes, not even the bruised testimonies, but the silence of a once mighty figure whispering to walls, afraid of poison, afraid of ghosts, and maybe, finally, afraid of his own truth. And don't forget about the bigger picture. Diddy isn't just a celebrity in crisis. He's a symbol, a linchpin holding together decades of quiet transgressions that flowed under the surface of music, fashion, and media. The rise of Bad Boy wasn't just about beats. It was about power. And now, with that power, fractured. Everyone's scrambling to distance themselves. Record execs deleting old photos, brand reps issuing cold no-comment statements. Even collaborators who once profited off his empire are now publicly silent, privately panicked. Because if the archive leaks, or worse, if it's used in court, the cleanup won't be limited to one man's legacy. It'll stain an entire generation of high-gloss entertainment.
We are not done. This investigation is ongoing. And I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward. And
the irony, of course, is that for all his legal moves, joining self-improvement programs, filing appeals, cooperating at times, Diddy may still lose the only battle that counts, the one for time. If his health doesn't hold out until sentencing, the truth may never make it to court. Witnesses might scatter, files might vanish, evidence might remain locked away forever, either by design or by fear. And that has us asking the real question: who benefits if Diddy disappears before he speaks? Who walks away clean if the secrets buried in those drives never reach daylight? Because make no mistake, this isn't just a downfall. It's a cover-up in motion, a collapse riddled with betrayals, mysterious silences, and whispered agendas. So now, we're left watching a man deteriorate in a fluorescent cage while the vaults he once controlled grow colder, more dangerous, and more valuable with each passing day. If he goes down quietly, a lot of people breathe easier. If he talks, everything changes. So here's where it lands. If Diddy doesn't survive to see his sentencing, what truths will perish with him? And who stands to gain the most from his silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think is pulling strings behind the scenes? Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never underestimate the quiet before the storm.